Hi guys, I'm back again with some more stories for you today. Let's go to the first one, about OP's parents, who demand OP share inheritance her grandfather left her, with them and OP's sister. But there was a reason why Grandpa left everything to OP. Listen to the story to find out, and of course to hear my insights. Enjoy the stories, guys, and don't forget to like and subscribe. And of course, don't forget to leave a comment. My family situation is messy. I, 25 female, was engaged 4 years ago to my high school sweetheart. My fiancé cheated on me with my sister, 28 female. We had never had a good relationship, even as kids, so after I found out, I went scorched earth on both of them. She was so in love with my fiancé, but he dumped her within 2 weeks and was back trying to get me to forgive him. I didn't. My parents were initially on my side, but my sister had a nervous breakdown after she was dumped and was hospitalized. So they changed their tune to, "It's over now, and you can't be mad forever." So I dumped them too, and went to grad school on the other side of the country. My grandfather was livid with the whole thing, disowned my sister, and chewed out my parents. Sometimes it felt like he was the only one who was on my side and understood. I was able to get my job to let me work remotely and moved back to take care of him when he got sick last fall, and I was devastated when he passed a couple of months ago. I had been in limited contact with my parents since I came back, mostly because I didn't want to be an obstacle to my dad seeing my grandfather, but with the understanding that any discussion of my sister or what happened would end that. It turns out that my grandfather left me virtually everything. He left enough for my father to cover a debt and some token stuff for a couple of other relatives, but he wrote letters for everyone and did a videotape with his attorney explaining what his intentions were. I knew that he had done well for himself, but he lived a pretty simple lifestyle, so I didn't realize how much money and assets he really had. I would give it all up to have my pawpaw back, but even after taxes, it is a set-for-life amount of money. My parents are pretty mad about it. One of the reasons stated for cutting them out was how disappointed my grandfather was with how they had treated me growing up, versus my sister, and over the fiancé debacle. There were other reasons, but that's what they fixated on. The will is pretty airtight apparently, so my parents want me to do the right thing and share it equally between me, them, and my sister. Their argument is that I don't need it. I make more than both of them combined, and this would allow them to retire. My sister's not doing great and can't hold a job, so this would ensure she has something for when my parents pass. I don't want to. My grandfather's wishes were crystal clear, and also I kind of don't feel like doing more than the minimum for any of them. They've been telling me that I'm being vindictive because of a mistake years ago. I can't deny there might be a little vindictiveness there. I don't want them to suffer necessarily, but I also don't feel like they deserve my help. As old as time, you reap what you sow. Pawpaw clearly saw exactly how OP's family treated her and favored her sister. OP is under zero obligation to share anything with them, period. OP's grandpa was pretty clear on his intentions. If he wanted them to have his money, it would have been left to them in the will. So OP needs to respect her grandpa's wishes. And now let's see if the community agrees with me. Sunshine Kitten Yes Yes says, "Not the a-hole. I'm so sorry your pawpaw is gone. He sounds very loving and interesting by the way you speak about him here. That said, set your family connections on fire and walk away. That's what he would have wanted, and he granted you the means to do so. Walk tall. You've earned this." Unable Ad 148 says, "Not the a-hole. Ah, if it isn't the consequences of their own actions coming back to bite them. If only any of them had cared about doing the right thing when your sister pulled her BS. It would be a disservice to your grandfather to ignore his expressly detailed and outlined wishes. You aren't being vindictive. It's literally what he wanted. Anything they are suffering from isn't yours to fix or carry for them." Maple Leaf 5410 says, "Not the a-hole. What you do with your inheritance is up to you. Don't let your parents lay a guilt trip on you. As you said, his wishes were crystal clear, and he went above and beyond to make that so. To do against that would be a betrayal of those wishes. Your parents shouldn't be relying on you to fund their retirement, and your sister is an adult and should be looking out for herself. You got over your ex. She should be able to as well." My husband, myself, and our kids were one of the many families pushed out of our homes after the chemical plant explosion. We had absolutely nowhere to go. We asked around a family about staying with them, and his sister said we could come there and help out because she's in a tough spot financially. We've been with his sister for 3 months. I'm 36 weeks pregnant. My husband and I both work full-time and make good money now. My husband and I have been sleeping on the couch, and our kids, 3 male and 5 male, have been staying in the guest room. Well, my brother-in-law quit his job shortly after we moved in. He sits on his computer all day playing Sims. My sister-in-law works full-time. We pay her almost $900 a month in weekly installments to be here and buy all our own food. We agreed to $650 a month, but since her husband doesn't work anymore, she told us we needed to pay $900. Even paying $900 a month and buying our own food, we've still been able to put away close to $5,000. Well, where I'm nearing the end of my pregnancy here, I've been so tired and uncomfortable. We went and viewed a place yesterday, and we move in Monday. When we got home, I ended up falling asleep on the couch, and my husband was out with our boys fishing. I woke up hearing my brother-in-law running his mouth about me being lazy and taking up his living room so he couldn't do anything. It immediately made me cry. Duck pregnancy hormones. I packed up all of our stuff and just left. Called my husband, who booked us a hotel. My sister-in-law is freaking out because we were due to give her money today, but we said we wouldn't be giving her anything because we left. She says, "My husband is just stressed out because he can't use the living room, but everything is fine. You can come back here. It's just your pregnancy making you feel like this." But I refuse. I know she only wants another week's worth of money from us. Am I the a-hole? I think OP made the best choice to move out. She's upset because, whether consciously or subconsciously, she knows she has a shockingly awful husband who literally saw devastating personal tragedy as an opportunity to live off OP and the money OP was giving them, and then had the bloody nerve to insult OP as though she was a burden, instead of the literal excuse he was using to not contribute to the financial well-being and caretaking of his own family. That guy is a poor excuse for a human being. And now let's hear the community's opinion. Eliza Day says, "Not the a-hole. Stay at the hotel. You did nothing wrong. Thank her for allowing your family into her home, but you've now made other arrangements that are healthier for your family." Thai Dragon Lady says, "Not the a-hole. Sounds like brother-in-law needs to go out and get any job so he doesn't notice the couch being used by a very pregnant lady for rest. Go to the hotel. Relax. You can't see their house from the hotel, I hope." No Jelly 556 says, "Not the a-hole. Brother-in-law is probably mad at you and your husband because they will lose $900 a month, and he will probably have to get a job again. You and your family need peace to welcome another kid. Leaving was the right thing, and don't let them demand more money." My 27 male, wife, 25 female, is pregnant in her 3rd trimester. She's due to give birth in a little over a month, but yesterday she told me that she only wants to let her best friend, 25 female, in the delivery room with her. I was really mad by this and asked her why she would exclude me and not her, but she told me that she'd feel more comfortable with her best friend alongside her, which really hurt that she'd want her best friend for support over me. It just feels like for the entirety of her pregnancy, she's been choosing her best friend over me. First, she comes in to live with us to help and support my pregnant wife, even though I really didn't want it. But my wife convinced me she'd feel safer this way, and she'd only live here temporarily. Her best friend also doesn't pay any rent, cause my wife can't ask that of her best friend. She's also been accompanying us to all of the baby appointments. My wife convinced me not to reveal the baby gender to my family before it's born, but she let her best friend know, and recently she's also been taking her best friend to shop for baby stuff while excluding me, saying that this is more of a job for women and I wouldn't like it. I just feel really suffocated by my wife's best friend's presence at this point. But whenever I try to bring it up with my wife, she complains that I'm acting toxic by wanting to make her cut her best friend from her life, even though that's not what I want at all. I just don't want to be made to feel like I'm third-wheeling them all the time. I told my wife that it's unfair that she keeps choosing her best friend over me for all of the things related to our baby, which ended up with another argument between us where, once again, she's had her best friend backing her up by saying that I'm acting overly possessive of my wife, and she's allowed to make her own decisions on what she wants accompanying her while she's giving birth, and it ended up with me sleeping on the couch that night. Am I the a-hole? At this point, I just feel like giving up in order to keep the peace in our house. Well, I think OP needs to put his foot down as his wife is disrespecting him. OP should not take that. It took 2 people to make this baby, and the BFF wasn't a part of that process. So why is OP's wife pushing OP out of this experience so fully? OP needs to find out, because something is not right here. And now let's hear the community's opinion. Snoo Guavas 4944 says, "Not the a-hole. At this point, best friend is your wife's significant other. She lives there, is more involved in the pregnancy, birth, and planning than you're allowed to be. You're what? The taxi? ATM? Beard? Water Tribe Girl says, not the a-hole. Is your wife having an affair? Is she closeted lesbian or bi? I love my best friend, and I think it's okay to have her in the room. Strange she wants to replace you, though. But it sounds like the best friend is her significant other and not you. North Badger 6101 says, not the a-hole. Why didn't your wife just marry her female friend and get sperm from a sperm bank? In all ways that matter, your wife's female friend is her husband. I, 31 female, bought a home in 2020 for $79,000. It was sold to me by an old school teacher who sold to me over another couple that was offering $99,000. The teacher gave me a deal as I couldn't afford more at the time. I put a lot of work into the house, probably around $10K. Fast forward to summer of 2022. My uncle had liver disease, transplant, and had to stop working. They made a lot of poor financial decisions and ultimately found themselves in a ton of debt. They couldn't afford their mortgage, and my grandparents declined to move in with them and sell their house. It would have been beneficial for them, as they are elderly, and my entire family assists them with food, transportation, and doctor's appointments. No one in my family was upset with them. I offered my aunt and uncle to move in my house, as my fiancé and I were building a new house, and I was basically living with him and never at the house. They were thankful. I was renting to them for $800 a month, but wanted to sell as I couldn't change my address to the new house. I shared they would get priority. I got a realtor who appraised the house at $110K. I was shocked, but excited as I have student debt and will have 2 stepkids. When I told my aunt and uncle, they were furious. I told them I would go down to $105K, but this was an investment. $30K is a huge difference. Basically, my family is very angry at me. My father is no longer paying for the wedding, and I regularly get texts saying I'm greedy and basically out of the family. It's gotten so ugly. Am I the a-hole? You paid $79,000 in 2020. Adjusting for inflation, that's now roughly $92,000. Add in the $10,000 of work you've done, which you're probably undervaluing, and you're really close to the $105,000 you're offering. Will this argument go over with your relatives? Probably not, but it's a sound economic analysis, not the a-hole. Kronk LaSwarda says, this is why you don't overshare information with people. It's no one's business what you paid for it or why you got a discount. They can look up on Zillow what it sold for, but you can easily say, yeah, it had issues that I repaired, or other BS. Not the a-hole for asking market value. You're the a-hole to yourself for oversharing with friends and family. Nana111 says, not the a-hole. I have low tolerance for people who live beyond their means, then want to play the but we're family card to guilt family to basically pay for them living beyond their means. It sounds like you are financially sound, not only because your teacher cut you a break, but because you have made good choices. They're not financially sound because they made bad choices. You shouldn't have to pay for their bad choices. Edit to add. The family members that are mad at you, ask them what they have sacrificed to help your aunt and uncle. That ought to shut them up. Update. I posted this for my cousin with her permission, as she was really torn up about the decision. Your responses helped and reassured. If anyone's interested, the aunt and uncle are my mother and father. Today, they settled at $97,500. No fees. The family likes to use pressure and manipulation to get other people to do what they want. My dad became sick with liver disease. He drank regardless and pretended it doesn't exist, ignoring all his children's perspectives and advice. I'm a 32-year-old psychologist and tried to help on that end. He became sick enough and was asked to leave his job with a year of severance. His health continued to decline, and he received the transplant. A lot of poor financial decisions, and they're living above their means. My mom refuses to get a job and give up her volunteer position. She never worked in 40 years. My dad can return to work, but can't cope with the trauma of the near-death experiences, and basically turns to drinking. Meanwhile, my brother has given them $60,000 during a 2-year span. They don't actually address the underlying issues, and are asking everyone around to clean up their mess. The messages were so destructive, saying they'll never speak to my cousin again. No one will ever forget. She's greedy and nasty. What about the vacations they took you on as a child? Saying this happens to her and her future kids. It's so mean-spirited and has scarred my cousin and hurt her that everyone, sans me or brother, was so easy to write her off. My mother and father see nothing wrong with their behavior and have not even said thank you to Emily or even apologized. They're acting like everything is fine, and only because they got their way. My sister and her now husband had their wedding in the Lake District in the UK. It's so beautiful there. They had a lovely outdoor wedding. It was very intimate and only included family and friends because they wanted to go all out and make a mini holiday of it. We all arrived Wednesday morning and are due to leave on Sunday, so people can go to work. If you know the Lake District, there are lots of beautiful walks and scenic views. My family are quite seasoned runners and hikers, so my parents and I did a 12K trail run hike of Lurig on Thursday. It wasn't my idea, more so my parents. But I run longer distances on the road, so thought how hard could it be? I also don't see my parents often, and thought it would be nice to do something with them while they aren't preoccupied with work. It was rocky in some parts, and you have to be careful on your feet. I was not careful enough, and had a bad fall and hurt my ankle. The only shoes I brought with me were my road trainers, trail trainers. I hike in these anyway. My wedding heels, 3-inch, and Crocs, since I wear them to travel in. Because I was feeling some pain on the day of the wedding, Friday, I brought them with me in case I needed them, and I did end up needing them, so I wore them during the wedding. For official photos, I wore the heels, but would then change into my Crocs when nothing too important was going on. My sister saw me in my Crocs while I was down and asked me why I wasn't in my heels. I explained that I had a bad fall when I was running, and this was more comfortable, and I didn't want to aggravate my ankle. She wasn't very happy and said I shouldn't have gone if it was too risky for me. I asked her what the point of having the wedding in the lakes was if she didn't want any of us to take advantage of the trails. She said that wasn't the point, and it was rude to show up in Crocs. I said that I really should have gone to the hospital, but I didn't want to detract from her wedding, so she should be grateful I'm here, even in my Crocs. My sister and I aren't particularly close. My sister has been messaging family about my Crocs, and now I'm getting grief for wearing them at a formal event, and my aunts have been making snide remarks about how they knew I wasn't going to follow the dress code. Am I the a-hole? Suspicious Spite 5781 says, "Not the a-hole. They were backup shoes and you had an injury. You wore the heels for pics. Wedding culture has become so toxic." Enter a Bang Smooth says, "Not the a-hole. Oh, for duck's sakes. Your sister needs to get over herself. You wore the appropriate footwear for the photos and put yourself in pain to do so. She should be grateful you were willing to do that much, not snipe at you for not doing more. Crocs in the wedding photos could have been a funny family story to share in the years to come if she didn't have such a stick up her butt." Angry Seed Pod says, "No a-holes. I get why you wore them, but I can also see someone being a bit annoyed since Crocs look pretty obnoxious. If you guys already have a contentious history, that would definitely inflame the situation.